What I do is good enough. What I give is good enough. What I share is good enough. I am enough. What I have is good enough. What I am is good enough. Good enough is good enough.
Who do you think you are? Why are you up here? These people don't want to hear from you.
Hey, you voice in my head. Yeah, I heard what you said, but I'll choose new thoughts instead, and I say, go away, go away.
They're bored. Look at them. They don't want to listen to you. And what could you tell them anyway?
Hey, you critical voice, who won't let me rejoice, doubting my every choice, but I say, go away, go away.
You can't do this.
All these times you've led me to judge myself and criticize, but all the lines you fed me, I realize are only lies. I'm finally getting wise and sane. Hey, you voice of self-doubt, I don't care what you shout. Now I'm throwing you out, and I say, go away, go away.
You're not good enough.
Telling me I'm not good enough and teaching me to fear you. But as of now, I've stood enough, and I don't even want to be near you.
You're lousy. La la la.
I can't hear you. Hey, you voice in my head, I won't hear what you said, 'cause I'm choosing new thoughts instead, and I say, go away, go away.
You need to listen to me.
No, I don't. Hey, you critical voice, who won't let me rejoice, doubting my every choice, till I say, go away, go away. But, you're no longer needed, so you've been deleted. Go away, go away, go away.
Bye.
Thank you. So, that voice in our head, otherwise known as the inner critic. I mean, think about it. When our ancestors were cave people, and they had to choose between looking at a positive, this really tasty carrot that they might want to try, or a negative, the saber-toothed tiger that was coming around the corner, think about the consequences of choosing which thing to pay attention to. If you don't pay attention to the carrot, rather, you miss out on some pleasure. If you don't pay attention to the saber-toothed tiger, you get ripped limb from limb. So it kind of makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint that we focus on the negative. I know I do that all the time. I was once doing a comedy show. There were a couple hundred people in the audience, and they all seemed to be enjoying it. But there was this one woman in the front row scowling and giving me this look. And I was like, what did I do or say that she's so offended by? It was a clean show. I wasn't even making fun of people, which I sometimes do, but I only make fun of public figures, and I wasn't even making fun of anybody in particular. I was just doing funny songs about being a mom. And and of course, all the other people in the audience are enjoying themselves, but all I can focus on is this one scowling face. Yeah, you feel that? So she came up to me afterwards, and I'm going, oh no, what did I do? What is she going to say? And she walked up to me and she said, honey, you were so funny, I almost laughed. And the way I approach it is take all those standard techniques for dealing with the inner critic and kind of put them through a humor lens. For example, don't just acknowledge that we have an inner critic. Celebrate it as positive. It's a sign that we're a good person, because face it, if you knew somebody who had no inner critic, they wouldn't be a very nice person. They'd be the kind of person who walks through life thinking that they know everything. They'd be really annoying. They were probably popular in junior high. My theory is that anybody worth knowing as an adult had a lousy time in junior high. You all relate to that? Yeah. Then we're going to go further and we're going to name it. But I don't mean name it in this sort of metaphysical sense. I mean actually give it a name. Because it's one thing to say, hey, you inner critic, don't bother me anymore. It's another thing to actually call it something. So here's the thing with naming our inner voices or whatever you want to name. You want to make sure it's not a name of somebody you're going to run into on a regular basis, right? So I picked the strangest, not the strangest, but the most uncommon name I could think of that's still related to this. My maternal grandmother, Wilma, rest her soul, she gave my mother life, but she was not a nice person. She was very, very critical, very judgmental, and she was mean. When we were little and she'd come to visit and she'd play games with us, she cheated. She cheated at Candyland. And I don't know any other Wilmas except for Wilma Flintstones. So, but just to make sure that there's no Wilma, I decided to give her a middle name. And my first husband's name was Bob, so I'm going to call her Wilma Bob. And meaning no disrespect to ex-husbands, but he was pretty judgmental, and we get along fine now. But anyway, if I call this inner critic Wilma Bob, I know I'm not going to think that it's a real person. I also think, you know, they say visualize. Well, I'm going to visualize my inner critic and actually give her a physical shape. But I don't want to be scared by her. So I thought, what is the funniest cartoon villain I can think of? And all that popped into my head was Ursula the Sea Witch from Little Mermaid. Remember her? Because she's like an octopus and she's funny. But then that was too funny. And I thought, well, that doesn't really feel like an inner critic. And then I remembered Mrs. Winston, my junior high choir teacher. I don't know about you. Lots of us have issues about our singing voices. Apparently singing in public is right up there with public speaking as things that people fear more than death. Well, there's a reason we fear singing, because a lot of us have been told not to. Mrs. Winston came up to me one day and she said, you know, Lauren, I'm going to switch you from the alto section to the piano, because that way you'll actually contribute to the music we're making. But what I do sometimes, if I want to make sure I don't get paralyzed by these doubts, is I take them to a ridiculous extreme, and it kind of helps me laugh at how silly I'm being. For example, just like your opening, your presider, I'm having some vocal stuff. It's allergy season. A lot of us have had colds. I'm going through some postmenopausal vocal change stuff. And so my voice sometimes cracks. And I was worrying about, what if my voice cracks? And I thought, well, if my voice cracks, I'll suddenly lose the ability to speak. It'll make this entire meeting and the whole service a disaster. And somehow it will influence global warming to cause a horrible snowstorm where you are, which will somehow snow in San Francisco, which has not had snow for 60 years. But somehow I will cause a snowstorm that will make all the power go out in the entire state of California. One of the biggest areas I had for doubting myself was when my kids were younger. I don't know if any of you have dealt with parenting challenges. Are there any parents out there? Yeah, a few. Okay. And even if you don't have kids yourself, you probably know people who've had kids that maybe listen to how hard it is not to judge themselves. Because no matter what you decide in any given situation, face it, there are hundreds of books, websites, experts who are going to tell you you're wrong. Or in my case, I just called my mother. She really objected when my kids were little. She objected to the fact that I let them watch the show Family Guy. Have you ever seen that? It's a cartoon. It's kind of like All in the Family in a cartoon, but really inappropriate and really funny. My kids loved it. Everybody when they were in middle school was watching this show. So, and I understood her point that it was kind of inappropriate. On the other hand, all their friends were watching it. So if I didn't let them watch it, they'd feel left out of the conversation. But by that logic, if all their friends were sniffing glue, was I supposed to let them do that? So basically, no matter what I decide, I'm a bad mom. Or my kids bickered a lot, which of course my impulse was to jump in and break up. But then I saw an expert that said kids are only fighting to get attention, so the best way to stop it is to ignore it. But then I saw another expert who said, actually, sibling rivalry can sometimes be dangerous if it gets out of hand, so parents have a moral imperative to step in. But then I saw another expert who said the kids learn conflict resolution when they fight, so when parents intervene, you short-circuit that important emotional development. So no matter what I decide, I'm a bad mom. Or there was that There was one morning when my younger son woke up with a sore throat. It was a school day and my husband was out of town, and I didn't know what I was going to do because that day I had a big presentation to a client. I was doing a lot of corporate theater at the time, and so I was going to get this big gig if I could make this presentation work. And I had waited so long to get in to see this potential client. I knew I would never get another meeting if I canceled, so I was like panicked. What am I going to do? But then I took Ben's temperature. It was normal. And I figured I can just go ahead and go and send him to school. But then I thought, what if he feels worse at school? He goes into the office. They call me. My phone is off because I'm in the big presentation, and they think I'm a bad parent. But then I remembered he had a vocabulary test that day. And you know how kids develop psychosomatic symptoms when they don't feel prepared. So I should let him stay home, except it's really my fault because I was supposed to help him study the night before, but that was the other son's rehearsal ran late. And then we had to stop at the store to get something to eat because I wasn't going to do takeout 3 nights in a row. See, I'd meant to do menu planning and grocery shopping for the week the previous Sunday, but that was the day my husband finally got the ping pong table assembled that had been sitting there for 6 months because we lost the instructions. So I decided family game time was more important than grocery shopping for the week, even though it was a really disaster because the dog ate the ping pong balls and the kids argued about fighting. But anyway, that's why I couldn't help Ben study for his test, so I really should let him stay home. But if I cancel on this client who I waited weeks to get in to see, I'll never get in to see them again. I'm going to have to stop working for myself, go get a 9-to-5 job, which is really going to be 9 to 9, 80 hours a week. I'll never see my kids. They'll fall in with the wrong crowd, start doing drugs, and ruin their lives. But if I don't cancel the meeting and stay home, then Ben is going to have abandonment issues, never be able to sustain a meaningful relationship, and then he'll ruin his life. So no matter what I decide, I'm a bad mom. So these are all a few things that you can do to try to reduce the inner critic a little bit, and I hope they have helped. But when all else fails, you can also remember, like I said, to celebrate it because it's a sign we're making real change, right? If you aren't stretching, if you aren't trying anything scary, if you aren't doing hard things, there's less for your inner critic to complain about. I mean, if you just never try anything, never do anything, then you're not stretching. So generally, when the inner critic comes up the strongest, all the experts say it's a sign that you are challenging yourself, you're growing, you're stretching. I mean, we can all keep growing no matter how old we are. And I don't like my inner critic, but at least when she comes up, I can think, wow, this is a good sign. Have you ever heard the expression, get your pom-poms out? Anybody heard that? It's something I've heard people say, you know, oh, you did this great thing. I'm going to get out my pom-poms. I literally have pom-poms. I'm a very visual person, and I like having pom-poms. I mean, true confession, I used to do a lot of corporate theater stuff with Karen Drucker, and we created cheerleaders that would do, like, you know, corporate cheers to go with some of the things that people were doing in their company. And it was really great because neither of us would have even dreamed of making cheerleader because we were both not popular in high school or middle school. And so this is like, I get to live out all my fantasies that I never got to be a cheerleader. And it helps me celebrate my inner critic when she tells me that I'm doing something difficult or challenging or brave. Here we go. Ready? Bring it on, Wilma Bob.
Bring it on, Wilma Bob.
I know you're just doing your job.
I know you're just doing your job.
Showing me great changes in store.
Showing me great changes in store.
And now I'm showing you the door.
And now I'm showing you the door.
Yay, Wilma Bob. Oh, let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Repeat that. We are making a new world now. Last time we